Thank you, John. It's great to have you here. So happy 2018. I know I keep saying it. I'm hoping by February it'll sink in. You know, it takes a while for the brain to click over. And so yesterday, January 6th, was Epiphany. And we don't hear so much about Epiphany anymore, but traditionally it marked the end of the Christmas season. And I know many of you finished with December 25th, and it's like, that's it, we're finished. And we hear about the 12 days of Christmas, and we've started hearing about it, you know, leading up to Christmas, and then by the time Christmas comes, you're like, I'm done with the 12 days, I'm done with Christmas. Well, actually, the 12 days of Christmas follows Christmas. In the tradition, and it is that journey that the Magi take home. And Epiphany is that celebration at the end of that journey, and depending on which church you follow, it either is January 6th or it starts the journey from Christmas season into Lenten. But for today, we're just going to focus on Epiphany is that celebration. And metaphysically, Epiphany is a bridge between when we call forth the light, that Christ light, that Buddha light during December and during the winter months, and we carry it out into the world. And so Epiphany is that bridge that we take and we say, how are we going to take that light that we rekindled during the Christmas season, and how are we, each of us, going to bring that into our lives, into our communities, into the world in bigger, brighter ways in 2018. And so it fits perfectly with our white stone ceremony today, which is a deep listening to what is calling forth in our life. What is our soul calling forth through us in our life right now at this moment? And the word epiphany comes from the Greek epiphaneia, meaning appearance or manifestation. It refers to revelations brought to us by the gods. And Maya Angelou says this about it, because Epiphany has started to be used over time for spiritual insight, for those aha moments. Maya Angelou says, it probably has 1 million definitions, but her definition is, it's the occurrence when the mind, the body, the heart, and the soul focus together and see an old thing in a new way. And so I think it's important because as much as we like clean slates and fresh starts, we never fully ditch everything that came before. And so we are always leaning back into what came before as our foundation. And of course, we have these rituals like we did last week, the burning bowl ritual of release and letting go of what no longer serves us. And so in Unity, we talk about primarily we're releasing the error thoughts, the error consciousness that no longer serves us. And if you weren't able to be here last week when Reverend Karen led us through that burning bowl ritual, I invite you to create a space for yourself to do something like that. Because there is real power in doing something actually physical and bringing it just out of our thinking like, I want to let go of that or I want to release that, but actually writing it down and creating a big, huge bonfire, or at least a small fire to release it and let it go. And that's also part of the power of our white stone ritual today, is actually taking something physical and tangible that mirrors and brings forth out of consciousness that which we want to call forth into the world and manifest. And so I'm going to invite you today to sort of hold in the back of your awareness, and when we get into the meditation and the white stone ritual, I'll kind of prompt this again, but it's not about a goal, and it's not a head process, and I can be very heady, I'm very analytical, so I can appreciate all of the analysts out here, but it really is about listening from our heart. And so when we plant these seeds of intention, it's listening for those deeper callings in our soul. To come forth onto our white stone. And from John 1:1 through 5, we have this. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through her all things were made. Without her nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light that shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. And what this is really talking about when we look at it metaphysically is it is about our Christ light. So that word is about what we're calling forth in a tangible way into our lives, into this world. We each are that Christ presence. And so in unity, metaphysically, we talk about we each are that light that's being called forth into the world in new and beautiful ways, unique to each one of us. There is something in the energy of the new year about a clean slate and fresh beginnings. I know I like it. It reminds me of the fresh snow that I'm always wanting more of. People that know me know that I spend all of winter wishing for more snow, and I usually don't say that out loud because a lot of people are trying to get away from that. But there's something in the cleanness, the brightness, in the softening and the quiet that it provides. And for me, that's this deep place of going within and that inner listening. But I also know that sometimes when the news is heavy, when people are going through challenges in their life, that looking out into the future cannot seem so bright. That there can be, it can seem like a challenge to grab hold of a hopefulness for our future. And looking into 2018, I know there may be people that when you tune into the news, it's hard to kind of lift yourself out into a place of hopefulness. But I think the danger is that we become too tunnel focused on what's not working, and we need to step back and hold the vision of all that is working right now. And I want to share with you just one story of many about life beginning again in new ways and beautiful ways. And so I came across it. There's a nonprofit organization called Life After Hate. And it was co-founded by a man, Christian Picciolini, and he was an extremist. He was part of a hate group. And he describes his journey in a couple of books, but you can also go out onto YouTube, and he's been interviewed a number of times. And he describes how, at the age of 14 in Chicago, he was recruited by a neo-Nazi skinhead group. And he talks about how he didn't come from a broken family. He had two parents. He had from outside, what would seem like a really solid foundation, a strong family. But he was lost. So he didn't feel like he belonged. He felt awkward. He was searching for a place to belong and a connection. And maybe not everyone remembers their teenage years, but I'm sure many can associate with that. And so many of our teens are in that place, and it's one of the reasons why hate groups specifically target teenagers, because they're in this time of awkwardness, looking for a sense of belonging, and when there's a gap, that gap is being filled. And so Christian describes a series of events that led him out of this life of hate towards a life of compassion, inclusion, and forgiveness. And one of the first things was that he became a father in his early 20s. And when he was holding his young son, his heart opened up. And he started to explore his beliefs and his actions in the world, and it started to conflict. It's like, how could he have this beautiful son, have so much love, and the people that he was targeting through these hate groups, they were somebody's sons and daughters as well. Another experience was that he started to work in a record store, and so as a result, he came across Jewish people and black people and gay people and people of all different traditions and walks of life. And what he found was he actually had more in common than different. And he just couldn't set that right against his actions as part of this extremist group. And so he left that, and he became a co-founder of Life After Hate. And what they do is they're about reconciliation. They're about intervention and pulling youth and adults out of hate groups into a place of compassion, inclusion, forgiveness. And often one of the ways they do that is first by not trying to make them wrong, but trying to just listen and be present for them. And then what they do is they invite them into households and dinners for dinner with people that are of different backgrounds. So many of these people, they've never crossed paths or sat down and had dinner with a different faith or a person of a different color or different orientation. And so that's one of the steps, is just helping them to see that we do have more in common than we have different. And Life After Hate, their mission is about inspiring individuals to a place of compassion and forgiveness for themselves and for all people. And so since then, Christian's gone on to do his own work, but Life After Hate continues its work, and Christian continues his work. And this gives me a lot of hope. And this is just one of so many stories of people that are doing incredible, compassionate work in the world. And that, I think, is something that we have to continue to hold. And this is just one story in one area, but there are many others like it, that there are incredible, wonderful things going on. And so that are the types of seeds that we want to plant in consciousness today individually, and then also hold collectively for our communities and for the world and our country. So, and our spiritual work does begin in consciousness. So in Unity, we talk about, and we know, and actually the science is now supporting it, that consciousness always precedes manifestation. So before a change happens, it has to change first in consciousness. For Christian, there had to be that inner conflict between his belief systems that just didn't jive. It didn't jive with the love that he felt in his heart and the acceptance that he started to feel and the kinship that he started to feel with other people. And so that shift in consciousness has to occur first. That's where we plant the seeds in consciousness that then take root out in our lives into the world. And Scott had mentioned that I have prayer class starting up next Sunday, the 14th. And yes, it is a prerequisite if you want to serve on the prayer team. But I always invite people to come and join in and play anyways. It's like playing in the prayer sandbox with me. And I've been either taking or facilitating prayer classes for 30 years, more than 30 years. And every time I participate in a prayer class in any form, I always get something out of it. And the reason is because most of us, think I can safely say, are never the same people. So we're continually shifting and changing. So it shouldn't surprise us that our practices are going to shift and change as well. We're continually diving into them and re-entering them in new and different ways. And so I invite you to come and explore that with me. An integral power that we touch into through prayer and through our work, and that we're going to tap into with our white stone, is the power of faith. And I think faith is a great place to start in this new year. Faith, I know, can sometimes trigger people. Perhaps if you've had a religious background where there's been a lot of dogma, you hear things like, you just got to have faith. So when you started to question beliefs or wanted to have answers, anybody can relate to that? You just have to have faith. And it was often used, and it still is often used, as sort of a dismissal. Like, I just don't want to really talk to you about this, so you just have to have faith about it. So anybody can relate to that maybe. But what we're talking about when we talk about faith today is actually an actualizing force. It's a manifesting power. And faith is, it's interesting, in Latin, in Hebrew, and Pali. Pali is the language which the original Buddhist texts were written in. Faith is a verb. It's an action. It's something that you do. You go faith. You go faith. And so I think we could have more of that in our world and in our lives. And I think it's a great energy to bring in when we're planting seeds with our white stones today. And so faith in the Revealing Word is one of our Unity classics. And faith is defined as spiritual assurance and the power to shape substance. It is a magnetic power that draws unto us our heart's desire from invisible spiritual substance. So it literally is that forming power. So if you think about your life as a ball of clay, faith is that which shapes it into that creative you and all that unfolds into your life in all areas of your life. So faith is that necessary ingredient, that key ingredient in making it happen. And the Buddha said, faith is the beginning of all good things. So if the Buddha says it, there must be some wisdom and truth in it. So in her book, Faith, Trusting Our Deepest Experience, Sharon Salzberg describes the nature of faith as that force which, no matter what we encounter in life, enables us to try again, to trust again, and to love again. She goes on to say, faith is the animation of the heart that says, I choose life. I align myself with the potential inherent in life. I give myself over to that potential. This spark of faith is ignited the moment we think, I'm going to go for it, I'm going to try. The state of love-filled delight in possibilities, in eager joy at the prospect of actualizing them, is known in Buddhism as bright faith. And who doesn't want a little bit more bright faith in your life, right? And so that is the energy that we're tapping into today as our foundation. And the white stone does metaphysically mean a foundation. It is that foundation of faith. The disciple Peter is often associated with that disciple that had such faith. And so the stone is that foundation upon which we build our lives. So as we listen to the ways in which our soul is calling forth our own life, there's a deep stillness within that. In a few minutes, we're going to enter into a time of meditation, and then from there, we'll dip into the silence. And in that place of listening, again, I invite you to listen from a place of your heart, from that stillness within, from the wisdom of your own soul, from the wisdom of spirit. And it's from that place that we ask that question and we hold that question of what is being called forth in my life right now. In Revelations 2:17, it is written, "He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches," which is all of us, it's the people. "To him who overcomes, I will give some of the hidden manna. I will also give him a white stone with a new name written on it, known only to him who receives it." And so as we unpack this, the hidden manna is spiritual food. It is that spiritual understanding which we all have access to. And the white stone is that foundation upon which we're building our lives moment by moment and day by day. And we kind of tap into the larger collective energy with a new year. So there's always potential and possibility in every moment to begin again. We know that. Yet in this energy of a new year, there's something greater about it that allows us to step forward into bigger energy. And so my question for you to sit with, and we're going to take this into meditation as well, is what seems maybe outside the norm? What's a reach for you? What's maybe a stretch for you? And just going to plant that seed, because it's easy to get comfortable in the place where we are. And again, the word that comes forward on your white stone, it's not meant to be a head thing. So we're in this dance right now between listening to spirit, listening to our own soul. But I also just want to nudge us in the direction of what's that deeper calling? And it may even feel a little uncomfortable. And that might actually be a clue that that's a direction we're being called to go in. Sometimes our souls call us in that place. So if it feels a little uncomfortable, that doesn't mean that it's not necessarily something to grab hold of for 2018. And so before we kind of move into the meditation and the white stone ritual, I don't really want to disturb that portion of it. So I'm going to ask if there's anyone that does not have a white stone, if you could raise your hand so that our ushers can come around. So we do have at least one person up here at the front. And to lead us into meditation, Aaron's going to lead us in oming in. So om is that beginning sound. It is that sound of new beginnings. And so it is the perfect way to enter into silence. So there's someone else up here that needed a white stone. I think, got it? Okay. So I think we're good. And everyone has, there should be a little pencil that you have as well to write with.
We'll use 3 sets of 3 ohms.
And in this stillness, you might imagine a field of white snow. It's clean and bright. Never been any footprints on it. It's waiting for discovery. And as you're looking out upon it, and looking out upon this year of 2018, what are the quiet whisperings of your soul, your spirit? What is that bright star, that word that will be your guiding star in 2018? And there may be a swirling of words. And that wonderful mind wants to jump in and figure out what it's supposed to be. I'm just going to invite you to let it to settle. And allow that one which is most important for this point in time on your particular journey to just surface effortlessly with a knowingness and a faith that this is your guiding light for the coming year. Know that it is unique to you and your journey at this point in time. It may not even make sense right now from the viewpoint that you have. But just trusting that it comes perfectly to you, easily to you. When you have clarity about that word, I invite you to write it on your stone with an intentionality, the energy of that faith that this is manifesting in beautiful ways in your life in this coming year. Another great reason to have a small stone is you can't write a whole paragraph of everything you want. You have to choose. So I just invite you in this moment to just take that stone and just hold it to your heart at this time. And while it is a word written on a stone, it is a representation of something that's being held in consciousness, something that's being called forth into your life. And so we bless this awareness, we bless these words, we bless each person's journey as its path unfolds in this coming year. And we open to all of the beautiful ways that our lives are unfolding and the guiding light that this word is for each person. And for these prayers and intentions that we call forth at this time, we are so grateful. And so it is. Amen. And so I'd invite you, when you take your word home, maybe find a place special to put it. If you have an altar, go ahead and place it on your altar. But somewhere where you can sort of have it during the year. I know sometimes it's fun, too. You put it away, and people don't look at it until the end of the year. It's like, oh, that's what it was. That's what it meant. And sometimes you have an inclination or a nudging of how it might unfold. But I also think it's wonderful to be open to the surprises and the unknown. And that, to me, is part of the mystery of spirit. And so I'm going to ask if the ushers could turn the lights back on, or somebody that's closest to the back corner there. Thank you. And so blessings for this coming year. Thank you for planting the seeds of intention for a higher, better, brighter consciousness. And we celebrate that and we call that forward into our lives, our community, and the world. And so it is. Amen.